very short briefing for this tour of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's one of the prides of my tour, and in about 10 minutes I can do, I like to do like the whole history in about 10 minutes. It's my pride. So after these 10 minutes you'll know everything you need to know. No need to come on the tour or any other tour. We'll be experts. And the idea is just to give you the basic principles, that when you go out there and I show you things, I know that you know. So you may know some of these things, some might be new to you, but I find this useful. Alright, so it's a common misconception about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that it's something that's been going on forever. It has to do with tribes and religions and groups from ancient history. And the reality is that the conflict that we're talking about, most of what we're going to see today, is only about 100 years old. It starts with the establishment of the Zionist movement in Europe. The Zionist movement in Europe was a national movement of European Jews who was trying to deal with some of the difficulties of Jews in Europe at the time. This included, of course, the different riots and the decrees and the abuse of the community for many hundreds of years, and of course eventually culminating with the Holocaust. And this group was starting to think, well, how can we resolve this? One of their ideas was to set up a national movement, similar to other national movements which were set up in Europe at the time. This was called the Eve of Nations. Many national groups in Europe were developing. And this group thought, well, if we have a national movement, we find a land that we can develop in and fight for our independence, then we'll be free from our concern with this, and we can sort of determine our own destiny. Fairly early on in this movement's history, they decided that the land will want to sort of define themselves as a nation in the ancient land of Israel, which was then Palestine, under a region under the Ottoman Empire. And what they did was they started sending settlers, colonizers, to start setting up small towns and villages in Palestine in order to establish a national presence there. This movement initially was a very small movement, both in the Jewish world and in the world at large, and only won its first real major political victory in 1917, when, following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire by the British were given the mandate over Palestine by the League of Nations. One of the first things they did was they sent the Lord in charge, Lord Balfour. And Lord Balfour gave what is referred to as the Balfour Declaration. And in his declaration, Lord Balfour said, we the British Empire, see very, very favorably the establishment of a Jewish national homeland here in Palestine, the ancient land of Israel. This encouraged many more Jews to come from Europe, now that they had the support of the big empire. And as this movement started to grow, it started coming into conflict with another national movement which was growing at the time here in the country, which was that of the Palestinians, of the local people. Similar to other Arab nations, they were developing a national movement, and as these two movements were growing, they started clashing with each other, and also against the British, who they saw as the colonial rulers. This conflict had different points: 1929, which we talked a little bit about this morning, 1936, and of course 1947, 1948, which was the height of this conflict, the decisive war of 1948. And I'll tell you how that came about. In 1947, the British, after the Second World War, decided to withdraw from Palestine, similar to other places in the world, in India and Africa, and give the mandate back over to the United Nations. This new body they formed after the Second World War. And the United Nations came, our first map, and they set up a commission. They came, they have a look, and they decided on this plan right here. This is the 1947-1948 partition plan of Palestine. And they partitioned the land into two separate states. One is the Jewish state, right here in white, and one, the Arab state, here in gray. And this here, in red, Jerusalem, was meant to be an open international city governed by the UN, open for all. This plan was accepted by the Zionist leadership, which by this point was representing most of the Jews in the land. And their idea was, well, you know, we're a minority of the population, about 1/3. In this plan we get quite a bit of the land, about 55%. Granted that much of it is desert land, so not the best land, but it's something we can start on, we can build on, start with, and build on. And already at that point, some of the leadership were already thinking or anticipating that a war would break out following this decision. And they said, if we're victorious in the war, we can design borders more to our liking. The Arab or Palestinian population rejected the plan, both the Palestinians and the neighboring Arab states. And their thinking was, we're a majority of the people, we get a minority of the land. And in any case, they saw this whole plan as a plan of the British and the imperial forces to take Palestine away from them. They said those Zionists have come from Europe very recently with a local population. We deserve to decide what happened to the land. So this led to an outbreak of a war, like I said, in 1948, 1947 and 48. Very bloody war. About 1% of the Jewish population died during this war. Many more Palestinians. And by the end of the war, this is our second map over here, it shows the results of the war. The war was won, especially in its second stage, quite handily by the Zionist forces, who established the state of Israel on about 78% of the land. This excludes the West Bank, which you can see right here, which came under Jordanian control, was annexed into Jordan, and the Gaza Strip, which was put under the control of the Egyptian military. So that's one result of the war. Another result of the war is about 800,000 Palestinians living inside what became the State of Israel were either expelled or fled during the war, were not allowed to come back. They took home in refugee camps in the West Bank and Gaza, in Lebanon and Syria, Jordan, in the US, in Italy, different places. And they're who we know today as the Palestinian refugees. About 200,000 Palestinians remained inside what became the State of Israel. In 1966 were given Israeli citizenships. Are now about 20% of the Israeli population, so over 1 million. And they're often referred to as the Palestinian citizens of Israel or the Israeli Arabs, depending on who you ask. Like I said, about 20% of the population. The last important consequence of the war, and especially important for our tour, was that Jerusalem was divided during the war into East and West. The east part came under Jordanian control, and the west part became exclusively Jewish Israeli. Where we're sitting here right now, at the edge of the old city, is actually the edge of the east part of the Jordanian control area. And today on our tour, we're going to follow that old divide to east and west. We're going to cross the road, we'll cross it again, etc. Our next big war was in 1967. But before that, in those 20 years, another important thing happened. About 1 million Jews who were living in mostly Muslim countries in the Arab world immigrated from those countries, left those countries, fled from them, and emigrated to the State of Israel, where, when they arrived, they were placed on the borderline areas of the country. Places like Kiryat Shmona, up near Lebanon, places like Bet Sha'an, here on the border with the West Bank. All around the Jerusalem border was Middle Eastern Jews, farther out was European Jews. Here near Gaza, Sderot, you may have heard of Sderot, all the way down to Eilat. While the European Jews who were coming at the time were put on the coastline area, the Tel Aviv area, north and south. This was where most of the industry was, this was the cultural center of the country, much easier to get by. Also farthest out from the border. And this created a situation where the Middle Eastern Jews were like a buffer on the borders between neighboring Arab countries and the European Jews who were living on the coast. And this created a lot of tension, and eventually in the early 1970s there was a big resistance of the Middle Eastern Jews in the form of the Israeli Black Panthers, and today we're going to talk a little bit about that, and on Friday even much more. So the next big war, like I said, is 1967. This war is often called in Israel the 6-Day War, because in 6 days the Israeli army defeated three armies of the neighboring countries of Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, and won a lot of territorial gain, including the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, Golan Heights, and the Sinai Peninsula, a very big piece of land.